Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, the bicycle industry podcast that brings retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders to the mic for honest discussions about the latest issues facing retailers while taking an in-depth look at the person within the profession.
All right, welcome to the Flex. Today is our Retail Design Flex. This is our ongoing podcast feature focused specifically on store design, remodeling, and merchandising, produced in partnership with NBDA Association member Fixture Lab. I'm Heather Mason, NBDA president. Brian, thanks for being here. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, listeners, the Retail Design Flex airs on the last Friday of each month, and we cover your most pressing questions on store design. And not only available on Bicycle Retail Radio, if you're listening in the car, on a run right now, on a bike ride, when you get back, you can head over to the NBDA YouTube channel and you'll see a version of this episode with images. There'll be lots of images shared today, so you definitely want to do that. There's also a link in the show notes to that YouTube. Hey, Fixture Lab has been in bike shop design and merchandising for years, and they have solutions that work for retailers, hardworking solutions that pay off big time. If you're in the cycling, running, fly fishing, or outdoor sports, they can help you as well. It's not just cycling. They design cutting-edge retail spaces that make your competition green with envy. And they also make a super cool line of retail store fixtures that can help you present product in amazing ways. So you can learn more at fixturelab.com. Cool thing about this, Brian and I are answering your questions on the Flex. So if you have a pressing question, something like, I don't know, I hate my slat wall, what can I do? I want to put a shower in. Why can't I use my bathroom as a dressing room? How about incorporating a great logo into your store? Any questions you have on merchandising, store design, fixtures, remodeling, you can email us with those questions to design@nbda.com and we'll answer them on the podcast. It's super cool. Brian, episode 3, how are we doing?
We are so good. And thank you so much for getting to all of the bullet points, the nice things you said about me that I wrote for you. I really appreciate you rattling those off. That was very, very nice.
Okay, I'm putting you now in the protection program. Brian and I are joking offline. We get ready for these podcasts. We kind of sift through the questions we get and determine which one we think will benefit the most people by us answering it on the podcast. And some of the retailers write in and they're like, are you gonna use my store logo or and we joke, we're like, we're gonna have to put some of these retailers in the retailer protection program. But it's fun. I think we're doing good work, right?
Yeah. And I was gonna say, like, anecdotally, I find myself talking to clients or potential clients often nowadays, and I'm like, matter of fact, we just recorded a podcast about this very topic and you should listen to that later. So I feel like we're talking about some of the good stuff to talk about. So this is good.
We are. Yeah. And so this is episode 3. So if you're just chiming in, this is the first time you've heard of this, that you've heard Brian and I chatting about store design, merchandising, go back into our show archives and check out episode 1 and 2. Brian, what's happening in your world before we jump in? Just a little personal check-in. How you doing?
I prepared 2 things to show you, and one is top secret. How's that?
Okay. All right.
All right, hold on. I got to share my screen here. Okay, there we go. Can you see the arrow there?
Yes.
You just asked what's new. So this is what's new. We just shipped this thing out. It's a very fun little service sign that was inexpensive and relatively easy to build.
I love that.
Got fake neon in the middle. Like, you can order this neon from Amazon, literally. And then these are patio lights or Christmas lights or whatever you want to say. And the background is just simply printed PVC.
No more people wandering around the store looking for the service department with this hung up.
I don't know. They probably still will, but okay. So here's the top secret thing. Ready? Dun, dun, dun. This is a prototype of a new fixture It's a updated fixture. We've always had a handlebar waterfall as part of the fixtures, but I've been frustrated for a long time because the old one was hard to build and I didn't think it worked as good as it should. So we're redeveloping it, and this is the first time anybody's seen it. So it hangs on our other fixtures, so it's really flexible. You could put it on a gondola, on the wall fixtures, however you've got things set up. And there's 5 slots essentially for the bars. So it makes the display nice and compact. And this takes care of the bars because it's PVC, so it's never going to scratch the bars, and it works perfect.
I love this. This is like a heard it here, saw it here first moment.
Exactly.
And with so many retailers talking about customization and
Oh, hold on, Heather. I've got to go. There's someone calling me to get that new fixture.
okay, well, let me
Right.
know when you're back. For those of you who are not watching on YouTube, Brian literally just picked up a phone. It looked like an old phone too, not a cell phone, one of those prehistoric things. Maybe was
Yeah,
there
from here on out, if you're just listening to this and you don't have the visual, it's gonna be rough. So look at the visuals.
it's gonna get rough today. Yeah. All right. So, okay, loving the service sign. Really love the new prototype that we saw. Let's get into it because we could go on, but we have limited time, and let's dive into it. So we had a retailer write us a letter that I thought was awesome. It is really cool just to open up the inbox and get a letter from a retailer saying, hey, can you help me? So let me just go ahead and read this letter so our listeners can hear what this retailer wrote. And then
To
we'll
protect his identity, why don't we call him Marvin?
Okay, we're gonna call him Retailer Marvin writes. Hi, Brian and Heather. I loved the retail design flex #2. I mean, he started out really good. I mean, gotta give Marvin, like,
I mean, anybody that starts that, you're going to read the rest of it for sure.
right. So I'm taking you up on your suggestion to send you a video tour of my shop and share a bit about what I'm looking to improve. After 13 years in a nearby location, we moved to a smaller space. They lost about 1,000 square footage. This new space is brighter, more modern, better road and walking visibility, and has an outdoor space that they have yet to leverage beyond putting bikes in it. The space was a cold shell in a new mixed-use building with apartments above, which is really cool. And we designed the space to be flexible so that as we experience new flows of customers or merchandising ideas, they can make changes without knocking down walls. Fast forward a year, and we're trying to solve for pinch points, better navigation for customers to the service area, and hope overall to improve productivity. We have a growing customer base and a growing cycling community, so our tailwinds exceed our headwinds. Your ideas, counsel, and whatever else you can think of is not only welcome, but needed. Brian, I know you love this question. We reached out to the retailer. We got photos. We got so much. Yeah, I guess, Brian, I'm going to put this over to you. I know that we're keeping Marvin in the protection program. Let's maybe show some pictures and walk us through.
I actually did talk through the situation with, I'm going to call him now Contavious. And no, we had a great conversation, and it's a really, really good question because it's the stuff that so many people deal with when they're dealing with a new space. Can I just show you some of the pictures?
I would love it.
All righty. Let me move things around here a little bit. Okay, you can see the front of his store, right?
And that is not, if you're watching us on YouTube, that person taking the photo and the reflection is not in our protection program. That is someone else, a complete stranger.
Well, luckily his face is obscured, so no one will ever know that that's Laverna. So,
nice exterior though. It looks welcoming, looks inviting.
well, that's the thing about this store is it is nice. Like I was super happy that it wasn't a dreadful looking, tired old store. This is new. It's very clean. It's fresh feeling. It's open. He hasn't got bikes hanging everywhere. He just has some issues that they need to try to problem solve to take it to the next level. So let me take you back to the front door, and I'm going to walk through really quickly, and then I'll show you a floor plan, and we can really start to dig into what the problems are. Okay, so he's got two front doors. One is a double door and one is a single door. This is the double door, which is on the far right-hand side of the space. You walk in the front door and you're greeted by, and this doesn't show it too clearly here, but you're greeted by a wall. In front of you is this wall here, and then there's another little wall with some clothing on it, and then there's a cash wrap area here. Let's see, let me go back to this image. This is what the rest of the store looks like. Like I said, it's nice and bright and wide open, and they're merchandising things well. Got a good selection of product in there. Could probably use some consultation on the lighting to help optimize what he's got going on there. When you get around the corner from the cash wrap, you can see it here in the lower right-hand corner. Then you're headed back to what is the service department. Part of the problem is you don't really know that that's where you're headed because there's nothing indicating that that's where you're headed. So it's confusing for customers.
I see.
Until you get back towards this part of your journey and you see employees only there. And then you start to get around the corner and you run into this little desk here that has some stuff underneath it. And there's usually a guy standing there that's going to help you with your service write-up or whatever needs to be done.
I mean, for our listeners who might be viewing this online, the store, like you're saying, does look really great. It's got that polished concrete floors. It's visually appealing, looks really shoppable. But indeed, I have so many questions and I don't want to cut you off, but I'm like, it does look like it's like cramped. Like you have to almost walk around this large front counter. So I have questions about cash and wraps, but I don't know, where do you want me to interject with my questions, or where do you want to go with this, Brian? Because
we'll just keep on going. They're going to crop up naturally. The one of the basic things is this is not a big store. It's 2,200 square feet total, all in storage and everything. So that's always tough. I mean, when you start bringing in repair bikes and you're immediately fighting for space for things. So this is it's a worthy challenge. It's not like an easy one that anybody's just going to be able to do in their sleep. Let me show you the original floor plan for the space here.
Oh, wow.
I say original because there's one that is adapted for how they've set things up now, but this is what was originally planned. And I hear that it was planned out by an architect who hadn't designed a bike shop before, which is stuff that we run into all the time. Nothing against architects at all, but there's just some unique characteristics of a bike shop and the way that the bike business needs to flow and the size of things that it's tough for someone who doesn't do it to understand exactly all the ins and outs. So
like, you mean like pushing a bike through the store, even like stuff like that might not be accounted for from someone who hasn't been in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, let me just show you what all these arrows are pointing at here, and it highlights things perfectly. What we have in this floor plan is a small store with zero storage space. Like they've planned a storage rack back here for bikes, but there's nothing else. So there's nothing to hide, to be able to hide things from the customers, because all parts of our business aren't pretty. And you want to put your best foot forward. So that means having a back room and leveraging that a lot so that the front room can be beautiful. So what they had going on was a fit studio in here in the back, which nothing wrong with that, but again, there's no storage space. There was a little bit of display space back here, a dressing room, which we always recommend a dressing room if you're going to be showing apparel in the store. They had nice display space here, some more display space built between these two columns here. These are a tough thing to deal with. There was a bathroom that was existing in this space, plumbing there, so they put a utility sink out here on this wall. In itself, that's not a big deal, but you'll see when we start figuring out where everything's going to go, it's an odd place for a sink. Then they planned their service department right here.
Oh, I didn't realize that until now. I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is really not enough room for service. And where are we putting the bikes?
Right. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for what they saw in their head when they were planning that out, but there's service indicated here and then display and service parts on this wall, which gives whoever's doing service no tools that they need, literally no tools to do what they need to do, because there's no bikes on a work stand there or anything. Then we have the cash wrap area, this counter area, which for this size store is enormous. You know,
That's a lot of space for that, right?
Right.
If you're looking at this visual right now, there's a lot of space for that.
Well, in our experience with all of the technology that we have available to us today, that kind of feature of a store is getting smaller and smaller, to the point where some of the stores that we work with don't even really have a counter like that anymore. I always recommend it, but not a big one like this, especially in a small store. Then down here, this is that wall that I was telling you about. When you walk in the double door on the right-hand side over here, there's a wall directly in front of you. And then they built another wall next to that, and then the cash wrap there, which is interesting. And then pay attention to the angles of things, which is, we're going to discuss that a little bit more too. I'm pointing at the two doors. There's a single door and a double door in this space. All right, so now let's go to, I think they started to set that plan up and realized, oh my gosh, we don't have some of the things that we need to be able to operate with. So this is his napkin sketch, essentially, of what the adjusted floor plan is. So you can see bike storage coming back and some more shelving and things like that for those ugly parts of the business that need to be taken care of. Here's a parts closet. And then there's two service stands here for the service area. The bikes are actually going like this, like horizontal in this view. And then there's more bike storage over there. There's a workbench there. And then they put in that little counter that you saw in the photos right here, where someone hangs out. And then there's displays on this little wall here. They left the connection between these two columns. They connected those and put displays on it, which in itself isn't a bad idea. It's just a tough idea to pull off in this part of the store. They built in some more display space here, which is oddly behind the cash wrap counter. Typically, intuitively, you don't want to go behind the counter in a store.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, like, the original drawing, I want to say gave like maybe 10% of floor space to service, and this one looks now at like it's like at 40%, or the percentage is much larger. Is there a rule of thumb? Am I jumping ahead? But
well, I'm going to show you that when I pull up the shell model. I'll show you exactly, because I built those numbers into my model. So let's continue with these for a second, and then I guess I just put arrows on that. I'm pointing at the sink again here. So, okay, that's the way that the plan has worked. And now I want to take you through the way that I would approach it, or the way that I would try to think about this space if I were them.
And again, for our listeners, what we're doing is we're taking a space that is clean, is well merchandised, really has a lot of amazing things going for it. And what we're trying to do is alleviate pinch points. So that would be where customers, gather, or where it's just not easy, not efficient. There's like a holdup in the processes. So that's what we're solving for. Just a reminder, if you're just listening in. Wow, Brian.
Wow.
For anyone who can't see, Brian just shared a screen and it's pretty nice.
Okay, so what I did in this first view is I just simply modeled the very most basic aspects of what they have in their plan. And then if we walk through the space, you can see the two front doors there. Okay, so this is significant to me because you're looking through the glass of the door there and you see a wall. It's an odd greeting. I mean, you can certainly put a greeting on that wall, but it's an odd place for the door and a tough place for the door. And having that wall there means that as you start to walk through the door, even you're just coming up on that counter area. And until you get to the corner of that counter area, you're not going to realize someone is even standing there.
He looks
So,
he looks very kind.
right, doesn't he?
Mhm.
And I've made the counter extra high because their counter is really tall and huge. And but I'm sure that they scare customers all the time. Really, when they walk around that corner, they're not expecting to find someone there, or they just don't know where to turn when they get in the front door. So it's a little bit confusing.
Mhm.
Adolphus talked to me about that when I talked to him. So I know that to be the case. Okay, so then here's that view that we looked at before where we're looking towards the service department, but there's not much indication. And you have to get clear back here before you find the next person that's in the store. She's standing there ready to help you, but you'd never know. To this point, the store's done a really good job of hiding the employees, which is typically not a great thing.
Yeah. When
And
you
it's-
show it this way, you can actually see what, so for our listeners looking at this video right now, when you tune in later, we're actually walking through the store and it gives you a really good impact of what the customer is seeing. Yeah, but she does look ready to help though, Ryan. She looks,
Yeah, she looks very friendly, and I'm sure his people are very friendly. They're just hidden.
mhm.
So, you just can't see them in time. So this is their floor plan, the way that they laid it out. There's a lot of things omitted here just for the sake of simplicity, but that's the way it looks. Let me take you to the next view. This is if we demolish the walls that they built in there. This is the bare bones of what we have to work with. And I went ahead and left the bikes sitting there just for the sake of scale. We have this stairwell structure in the center, which is a tough thing to work around for anybody, anytime, especially in a small store. Can't use any of that space inside there. Then we've got two columns, which are unfortunately placed.
Okay.
Then we got a bathroom. I say unfortunately because the spacing between those columns and the walls around it, it sets up a challenging space challenge there. Okay, so now back to the square feet thing. You asked how many square feet's about the right number of square feet for that back room or for the service department. And when we are setting up a store, like if we just got that plan and we needed to figure out where are we going to start with a wall that puts the right amount of space in back and the right amount of space out front. And for everything that I say, there's always an exception, but usually it's between 30 and 40% of the store for a bike shop.
Okay.
So the back room should be between 30 and 40% of the whole footprint so that you can put your service department in there, offices, break room, bike storage, box storage, back stock, repair bikes, all that kind of stuff. Anything that the customer isn't typically going to touch themselves is what that back room should be. And if you figured out between 30 and 40% in this plan, it would put the wall right in this neighborhood here, which isn't too different than what they had in their plan, honestly, in their new adapted plan. But there's a big issue with the way that they planned in the walls to divide it up that I'll show you in a second. Okay, so let's just look at this area back here. This is what we're going to make into the back room. And I'm not going to design the whole store here. That's not what we're trying to do, but I'm trying to help people to start to dissect this challenge like we would so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls. Okay, Next up, I would, in that back room, providing that we're going to have some sort of dividing wall here, I would, as important as the service business is to them, I would try to build in another repair stand in the back.
Mm.
And I don't know really whether it belongs on this left-hand wall or whether it's the back wall or something like that. The stands that hold 2 bikes each, we always plan those in because it's just good. You know, you're working on a bike, you're assembling a bike, and then someone brings in a flat repair that you got to do quickly. So you can use the second arm on that stand to do that. I would also try to build in some very dense storage for bikes back there. They have in their plan, which you couldn't see, might have been in one of those pictures, but they have some vertical bikes hanging on hooks, which is a great solution. And then they have some boxes up above that, which is also great. A lot of the time, the most efficient, the most product dense storage that we can do is something along the lines of a Rudy rack, like a tiered rack.
Yep.
If you look at the bikes per square foot or the bikes per linear foot, most often a tiered rack, like a double or even a triple, can really help you decrease the footprint and maximize the number of bikes you can get in there. So that's 36 bikes against the back wall there. This is another way to do 36 bikes, and this is bikes hanging vertically on a rack of some sort. Different people have solved this different ways. But you can put the bikes hung vertically, then you can put bike boxes or whatever you need to on top of that. That's another way to get 36 bikes in there. So right at this point, we're doing a great job of getting enough storage in the back. I'm not saying that you would probably do both of these in that small space, but you can see the options there. Now, here's the issue. Can you see what's going on there?
This is really great. Yeah, I can see the issue, and I'm loving watching. Like it's sort of like, I wonder what Brian's going to suggest. Like, I have some thoughts when you show it visually like this, so it is fun to go along with this.
I wondered what I was going to suggest here too. So, but here's the problem. The purple wall is exactly the wall that they built in that space. And remember, this was their dressing room at one point, and now it's storage. The fact that that wall, and you know, I'm a fan of making things interesting, like doing interesting angles in the store and stuff. But there's a huge red flag in doing angles, especially with bikes, because bikes don't want to fit in the space to begin with, let alone when you start doing goofy angles with things, makes it really tough. And in this case, that purple wall ruins the ability to put in 36 more bikes in the back room because it's angled because of this extra little wall here.
Yeah.
So if they had just pulled this wall over this way and gone straight across, it'd be a different deal in the back room. Another thing about bikes is you want to avoid small spaces like this one, because it might be good kind of closet-like space for backstock, but the division of that space, of this bigger space by the smaller walls, means that it's going to be tough to get bikes around it. So that's a tough thing too. In a back room like this, I try to leave things really open, and we use the vertical space, and we use great efficient shelves and deep shelves for things. And, you know, we just don't build in especially slanted or.
I'm trying to think of why we add walls. Like, I remember when I took over a space, I was like, oh, I need to put a wall up so I can put merchandise on it and sell it. But yeah, we have to really think these things through, I think, before we just do that.
I'm so glad you just said that, because I wouldn't recommend not doing a wall there. You know, you could take what I just said and go the nth degree of that and say, okay, well, then we're going to remove the walls because that gives us maximum flexibility. But the ugly stuff that we want to cover up. And one of the pinch points, or one of the challenges that they have, is that when their store is organized the way it is with this counter here, when people come around that corner, they're talking to this person, and he said way too often customers are coming back here, or even talking to these people from this point here, and it's distracting his employees. So they're having problems keeping ahead of things. In fact, almost forgot this. He said that this season, they ended up closing down for 2 extra days a week. They closed the store for 2 extra days a week so they could catch up on service work. Because service is building, and their space isn't accommodating them, and they're not able to be efficient enough. And things like this customer that might be standing there distracting these guys is deadly.
Yeah.
So I prefer to stick a lot of that work behind a wall where customers don't disturb them. And, just let those guys be efficient back there. Plus, it's prettier, and it does give you merchandising space. All right. This is one of the biggest challenges in the whole store's floor plan. And it is a classic bottleneck that's built into the space. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't move the stairwell. We can't move the columns. We can't move the bathroom. So it's the narrowest spot in the store. So when I'm approaching that, I'm going to try to avoid putting things that are high traffic into the narrowest spot of the store. So I look at that and I say, oh, this is going to be a tough one, because we really want that wall for service back here somewhere. But if we put too much in the narrowest spot in the store, it's going to cause problems.
So we're just gonna block it all off. What are we doing, Brian? What are we doing?
We put in a huge dam, and now the customers have to actually climb over this 15-foot wall and use ladders.
We're mixing in CrossFit with our bike shop.
Exactly. And that's how we get extra money.
This
I didn't put a door in this. It matters for sure, but it doesn't matter for the very broad concept that we're talking about here, because we could put the door there or over here somewhere, but we need a door in that wall, obviously. Next up, I'm just dragging one of those service workstations out front, so that the person that is keeping an eye on the store can also do some work while they're there, and they can write up service. They can do that kind of thing. Now, this is a challenge. I mean, this is rough stuff here because of the columns and the spacing of everything. But if I can figure out a way, I'm going to see if I can fit this function right there, because it pulls it out of the narrowest, or the narrow spot over here where we need to be preserving that for traffic, to and from the back room.
Wow.
And then,
so if you're listening, you have to see these visuals, because Brian, you're blowing my brain. So we're actually taking away space in order to create better space and better flow, or not taking it away, but yeah, I wasn't thinking we were building a wall, but now that you're saying it like that, I'm like, this is better. This is so.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. And we're at risk here, because this is the whole front of the store now.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We can't eat into this space anymore. Like, this is, it's challenging up here. So we want to be as efficient as we can, but the problem is, I just left one of these over here. I want to drag that over here to this wall. Let's pretend that we put that station right there instead of over here. If we did that, look at that pinch point there. We've taken the narrow spot of the store and made it a lot worse, because this is a lot of the time going to have some guy working on a bike standing right here. So that effectively blocks off the whole back room, and they'll be murdering each other trying to get through there with wide mountain bike bars. So as much as we would love to stick, they have currently right now, they have a bike on a stand about right in this neighborhood here.
Oh, a display bike, okay.
Yeah, and well, it's not a display bike, it's what they do their service riding on, and then they have that counter there.
Okay.
But remember, they have that other wall over here, and it really is so narrow that they're tripping over each other all the time. So, like I said, I'm going to try and get this over here. We might have to do some other things to make it more efficient. Maybe there's a counter that goes, maybe there's like a little corner shaped counter here so that they can have service writing done right there. I wouldn't just leave this bike open to the front of the store. I'd probably put some sort of a counter or small, like a counter height wall or something like that we could merchandise on the face of, so that we can build in some more merchandising space.
Brian, can I interrupt you for a second? I'm finding this so interesting that I'm thinking that some people who are listening or watching this might want to reach out and be like, hey, Brian, can we do this exercise with my store? Is this something that someone could hire Fixture Lab to just go through and just do this sort of exercise? And just so the retailer could know or envision what their options are, like this seems like a lot of work, but
Yeah, totally.
it could be very valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to sit down with someone and do this kind of dig into what their space offers them, so that they could do the build out themselves, at least marching into it with these kinds of things in mind. For sure. What happens most often is we get to this point and the person that we're talking to is like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to screw something up. So we end up helping them, at least to some degree beyond this point, to help design that space. And a lot of times it's worth noting that somebody a client might need to spend money on our services, but it's going to save them a bunch of money in the end. Because if you avoid some of the pitfalls that we're talking about in this kind of a store, that means that you don't have months or years operating inefficiently and then having to redo it again later on. So that can actually save you a bunch of money. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here really quick. If we put that station where I just put it, I'm now standing inside the space looking towards the front door. The other big advantage to what we're doing there is the visibility to the whole store from that one spot. As it's set up currently, that store has a ton of blind spots for the employees and blind spots for customers. So it's hard to keep an eye on the store, and it's hard to just kind of monitor what's going on there and help people well. So this kind of a setup gives us the best ability to have that visibility all around the store. All right. Next little thing. Am I tracking okay, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing this. This is really helpful. I think that our listeners, I know indeed our listeners will get a lot of value in this. I'm wondering how, let's call him Sebastian, is feeling right now as we're running through his store.
I bet that Megatron appreciates that.
Let's keep going now. Let's keep going. What else for pinch points?
All right, now I don't know that we could actually do anything about this problem, but the problem that I see here is that double door, which I didn't build doors into the model, but you can see the opening for the doors is right against this wall over here on the right-hand side of the store. And the problem with that kind of an arrangement is you cannot put any merchandise on that wall effectively, because you run into this kind of thing where you're going to run into a rack when you walk through the front door. Mm-hmm. So that effectively takes out that whole doorway. And, like the way to tackle that might have been, I don't know if they could, but might have been to move this door further down this way, at least 3 feet from that wall, so that you can still merchandise on the wall, and that would save the day. Then you've got that much more merchandisable space. Or maybe perhaps there was a way to put the double doors over here where the single door is. Maybe. But for sure, red flag here when we see that the door is directly against that wall. That means that you're locking off some really good potential space.
There's so many considerations. It's not just like, oh, go on and put a Rudy rack and throw in the repair stand. It really, just changing things slightly can make such a better flow and keep your employees happy too, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And these are all tough things. Like it takes a long time to work through these kinds of challenges because, maybe you can't fix this problem that I'm talking about. And you need to capture that merchandisable space someplace else. I have one more thing to show about this space. Are we doing okay time-wise?
Yeah, I think let's go like 5 more minutes or so.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Wait, Brian, what is this?
It's the green roof. I tossed this in here because when we're dealing with a small space that's going to be fighting hard for storage space and for merchandising space, it's worth thinking about that vertical space that is used or unused. And it's not always a good solution, but at least one thing to consider, especially in this kind of a place, is let's say that we were able to put, and again, there's no door back here, but we're able to put that workstation right there with the counter in front of it. We've got the 2 columns that look like they're there to support a little roof structure, right? I mean, that kind of feels like that's why they're there. If we put this thing that I've got colored green in there in some form or fashion, it gives you some options. What it does, it gives us some options for lighting underneath that to light this little service write-up area well. It kind of locks off, makes this area feel a little bit more special. But then, because you've created a big, huge shelf up there, I've had clients end up putting bikes up here that are essentially backstock bikes, but they're not hanging from the ceiling. So it's not hanging down and getting in the way of other things. And I don't know that that's a great solution up there, but if we're really, really fighting for space for some bikes, maybe we could put a wall in here on top of that little roof structure so you can really display some bikes. Or everybody seems to have vintage bikes, things that they like to bring into stores. That could be an interesting little display space up there. And then think about what's back here. The green roof there creates a big, huge shelf back here. So if we opened up the wall back here from the backside, if you open that up and you put something in, let's just draw in something really quick here. Let's pretend there is a wall here. Okay. If you did that, then you have display space, bike space, or something like that up there. You could put TVs up there or whatever you want to. But then back here, you now have a big flat spot that you can put backstock on. Or it's like it's where you're going to throw your Christmas decorations. Yeah, you can make that the break room. You put a couch up there in this little tiny corner. No, I don't know. But it does carve out a little bit of vertical space that you can use efficiently back there instead of just leaving all of that completely open. And like I said, it's not always a great solution because you don't necessarily want this to start to feel small and cave-like in there. Mm-hmm. So we got to look at that. We got to think about that. But it's worth considering when we're fighting for the space, as long as we keep the front of the store nice and open. High ceilings in there so that it feels inviting. Maybe that kind of a thing is a good solution.
I love this conversation today because of a couple different things. You didn't say, here's what we suggest you do. You just took the space and showed us different ways that we could change it that would give us options. And it seems like that's really a process that you go through. And I love the colors that you selected. If I was doing this, I might be like, let's just paint this green and orange and blue. I mean, really cutting edge. And Brian, you have proven to me how amazing your brain is, because the second level thing, mind blown. I would have never even thought about that. So this is why you are great at your job, Brian. This is amazing.
You are far, 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 far too nice.
What a great question that we got, and some really unique ways to look at it. Yeah, what will that retailer do? I would love if the retailer who shall remain, let's go back to Marvin.
I call him Sweetums.
Gives us an update. And I hope that this was helpful. And yeah, I mean, I know you had a lot of great conversations with him, Brian, so hopefully that was helpful too.
Yep, it's great.
Awesome.
So,
yeah.
Anybody who's listening to this, think about this, when you want to send in questions, because we can literally protect your identity. So it's not like you're exposing yourself to the whole world out there, but it's really great to see a real life example and to help people solve the challenges that they have in every store that's out there.
Yeah. We love questions. So it's design@nbda.com. That goes directly to Brian and I. So you're going to get both of us all excited that you wrote something, especially if you comment on how nice we are, or how great we looked, or something kind. We really like those. Those are good ones. Pictures, videos, loved the sketch of the store layout on this one. So anything that you can provide us to help us give you the best answer. And yeah, if it's a great question that we think would help a lot of people, we'll answer it on episode number 4. Brian, thank you.
No, thank you.
Awesome. So well, it's fun. It's always fun, and it always goes by too fast. So if you're listening on the radio right now, head over to the YouTube channel. You can see all the cool videos. Today was really you really want to see those videos, so make sure you do that. And then yeah, we'll be back again next month. Brian, stay amazing. Thank you so much.
You do the same. Thank you.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. We love our members. Membership to the NBDA is open to retailers, industry suppliers, advocacy groups, organizations, and individuals. Learn more, nbda.com. Thanks for listening. Now go be great.
Thank you for listening to Bicycle Retail Radio. This podcast is designed specifically for the bicycle industry, dedicated to strengthening our retailers and cycling community. If it is your first episode, we urge you to take the time and listen to our past episodes. Support the show by first subscribing, then share your favorite episode online with friends. You can go one step further and leave a review. It helps members of our industry find our podcast. Special thanks to NBDA Development Director Rochelle Scouten for editing and promotional graphics. Music provided by Joel Picard.